Spiders the world over are the unfortunate targets of an inordinate amount of sensationalism, to the point where almost anything you read or hear about them is worth taking with a grain of salt. On social media platforms in particular, there is a perpetual cycle of misinformation. Images and factoids are posted for the sake of shock factor, irrespective of credibility, and some of those who were misinformed by such media will inevitably end up misinforming others in turn. As such, a lot of common knowledge about these animals isn't really knowledge at all. This is doubly apparent if you throw the word Australia into the mix as well. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Australia is one of a collection of names, other examples including Megalodon or Mariana Trench, whose mere mention is something that seems to dial the internet's collective gullibility up to 11. Which makes it the perfect candidate for coverage by clickbait media. It goes without saying, therefore, that Australian spiders bear the brunt of sensationalism more than those from anywhere else in the world. In this video, we'll be taking a look at a couple of the most frequently shared memes and other media pertaining to Australian spiders, and determining just how factual they actually are. Let's start with one that I probably run into on my social media feeds nearly every single week: spider season in Australia. This post, or some variation of it, regularly makes the rounds on numerous internet platforms, sometimes in the form of an image gallery and other times as a short video montage, and is often accompanied by a caption along the lines of "This is not snow, it's spider season in Australia." Most of the images depict large areas of land, including trees and man-made structures, almost entirely shrouded by spider webs. Occasionally, a few other photos are thrown into the mix as well. I'll get to those later. In the meantime, let's discuss the webs. First things first, and probably bad news for any arachnophobes watching, I can assure you that all these images are real and not the results of someone getting a little too carried away with Halloween decorations. However, far from being representative of a supposed spider season in Australia, this post is little more than an amalgamation of unrelated images taken all over the world. For example, reverse image searches indicate that a couple of these photographs, both depicting an enormous communal web, were captured at Lake Tawakoni State Park in Texas. The original caption on one of these pictures reads, "Lake Tawakoni State Park rangers continue to monitor a giant communal spider web at the park Tuesday, August 29, 2007 in Wills Point, Texas." But that's not the end of it. One of the more haunting images in the post features two large trees completely covered in webbing. Except, you guessed it, this isn't in Australia either. This photograph originates from a National Geographic article and was taken in Pakistan. According to the caption, it depicts the edge of a flooded farm field. The web-encrusted trees are, of course, the result of countless displaced spiders seeking the high ground to escape the rising waters. It's also worth noting that in the viral social media post, the image is cropped so that the people aren't visible. Another image, showing a fence and an adjacent field covered in webbing and innumerable tiny spiders, seems to have come from a stock photo site, and is credited to a Canadian photographer. While the location is unspecified, I'll add my 2 cents by saying that the vegetation in the background, consisting of conifers interspersed among what appears to be a forest of aspen or some other deciduous tree, does not particularly line up with Australia. The remaining photographs, all of which I must say are rather mundane in comparison, were indeed taken in Australia. But that's not the end of it. Almost as erroneous as the supposed location of all the images is the claim of a Australian spider season in the first place. It is true that in the warmer months of the year, spiders in Australia are more frequently seen. both due to an uptick in activity increasing the likelihood of encounters, and the fact that short-lived spiders like orb weavers tend to peak in abundance during that time, though they are present all year round, albeit in lower numbers. However, this is something that is in no way unique to spiders nor Australia. Across the globe, animals of all kinds tend to prosper during the warmer months, and an annual surge in spider activity is a phenomenon that takes place practically anywhere, particularly in locations with pronounced seasonal differences. And of course, Australia's spider season, if you want to call it that, isn't quite the spectacle that the viral post implies. The closest thing one would be likely to encounter here would be the occasional clusters of orb weavers, notably Cytophora malacensis and Trichonephila species, that sometimes form large colonies consisting of numerous interconnecting webs. A spectacular sight for sure, but a far cry from the vast swathes of countryside bedecked in webbing that the viral post seemed to imply is the norm for Australia. And of course, various orb weaver species overseas do this exact same thing. In terms of both size and abundance, Australian spiders don't really stand out much at all. Some versions of the spider season post, notably those uploaded to TikTok or YouTube Shorts, tend to feature a handful of additional media. The first is an old friend, one that I've seen a lot and already discussed a couple times on this channel, the broom huntsman. Here, a Typostola barbata is being held on a broom head, and positioned in such a manner that it appears absolutely colossal. Now, Typostola barbata is, without question, a very big spider, neck and neck with Berigama aurea for the title of Australia's largest huntsman. But in this particular photo, forced perspective did most of the heavy lifting. Far from the cat-sized behemoth it appears to be in the image, Typostola barbata generally reaches a more modest leg span of around 16 centimetres, although some individuals can approach 20 centimetres. The next two that sometimes get lumped into the spider season montage are just so ridiculous that I'm not even going to bother with an in-depth explanation on the whithertos and wherefores of their impossibility. All I'll say is that if you laid your eyes upon these and considered, even for the briefest iota of time, that they could be real, you're an absolute fool of a took and a complete waste of every second that was spent on your education. So with that whole Australian spider season fiasco out of the way, let's turn our attention towards a couple other viral images and videos of Australian, or supposedly Australian, spiders. Perhaps the one that irks me the most, and mercifully one that I don't see circulating quite as much lately, is this photograph, sometimes accompanied by the caption, "This is an Australian bird-eating spider, and some are bigger than this." To that I say, amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong. Yep, I hate this image so much that it made me quote arguably the worst Star Wars movie ever made. And the quote fits too, for every single claim in this caption is utter bollocks. First, this spider is a Theraphosa, a genus of tarantula native to South America, a continent that, in the creepy crawly department, is basically everything Australia wishes it could be. The label bird eater, while often used for both Theraphosa specifically and tarantulas as a whole, is also quite the misnomer, especially since Theraphosa are terrestrial burrowers, for which the opportunity to prey on a bird would very seldom present itself. And of course it wouldn't be a viral Australian spider pic without a bit of camera trickery, or in this case, some not so subtle editing. Theraphosa are, make no mistake, massive spiders. The biggest in the world, in fact, positively dwarfing any of their counterparts in Australia. But the one in this image has been digitally enlarged. So no, they don't get bigger than this, they don't even get this big in the first place. Continuing the trend of South American spiders being mistakenly associated with Australia, we have this short clip of what appears to be an Avicularia species preying on a bird. Quite a few times I've seen this video shared with a caption stating that it's in Australia, even though Avicularia are native to South America and are visibly very different from any of their cousins down under. In essence, if you're viewing anything about spiders online, especially if the name Australia is involved, it's worth treating every day like it's April the 1st. That one glorious day in the year when everyone fervently fact-checks every statement they see on the internet. If only more people realised that such a level of skepticism is just as beneficial of a habit for the other 364 days of the year too. I've spent a lot of time demonstrating to people that spiders and other mini-beasts are utterly misunderstood and don't deserve to be feared to the extent that society perpetuates. It's a goal that can be reached via numerous different means, sharing barrages of fascinating scientific facts and facilitating hands-on interactions with these animals being among the most successful. The rapidity at which a child's apprehension vanishes the instant a large huntsman makes contact with their hands is something I warrant I'll never tire of seeing. It's a profound demonstration of how education and experience trumps fear and superstition. However, having reached the end of this video, I can't help but feel that perhaps the best argument in favour of how misunderstood spiders are is nothing more or less than the simple question of how bad can spiders be if one has to consistently lie to make them sound scary? So that's the end of this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you enjoyed, feel free to hit subscribe and check out some of my other uploads. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.